Kelsey Plum leads Sparks' defensive rebirth as Los Angeles responds to historic struggles. But against the Portland Fire, something shifted. Led by Kelsey Plum, the Sparks delivered their most complete defensive performance of the season in an 89-72 win, a game that felt less like a regular season matchup and more like a statement. It wasn't just about snapping a trend. It was about changing an identity. Coming into the matchup, Los Angeles carried an unwanted distinction. The Sparks held a 115.6 defensive rating, the worst mark recorded in WNBA history. Opponents had consistently found success against them, exploiting breakdowns in transition, perimeter spacing issues, and a lack of consistent communication on switches. The statistical picture was even more alarming when expanded. Worst true shooting percentage allowed in the league. Second worst effective field goal defense. Frequent breakdowns in late clock situations. The message from analysts and fans was consistent: the Sparks could score, but they could not stop anyone. Plum sets the tone early. From the opening minutes against Portland, Plum played with visible urgency on the defensive end. The tone was physical, aggressive, and deliberate. One sequence in particular captured the shift in mentality. When former teammate Sarah Ashley Barker dribbled near the paint, Plum jumped into the passing lane, poked the ball free, and forced a turnover that sent Barker to the floor. It wasn't just a defensive play, it was a message. The Sparks were no longer going to be passive. They were going to fight. The intensity carried throughout the game as Los Angeles consistently pressured Portland's ball handlers, contested perimeter shots, and rotated with far greater discipline than in previous outings. A complete team response. Los Angeles held Portland to just 36% shooting from the field and a staggering 11% from three-point range. Defensive rotations were sharper, closeouts were quicker, and the team's communication, often criticized earlier in the season, appeared significantly improved. The Sparks also dominated the glass, finishing with a season-high 42 rebounds, including 15 offensive boards that created additional possessions and momentum swings. For one night, at least, the Sparks looked like a completely different team. She finished with 16 points on 5 of 10 shooting, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. Her scoring didn't dominate early. In fact, she entered halftime without a field goal attempt, struggling to find offensive rhythm in the first half. But instead of forcing offense, Plum stayed engaged in other areas, defending, facilitating, and leading by example. When her shot finally came alive in the second half, she capitalized, helping the Sparks pull away decisively. After the game, Plum emphasized professionalism and accountability as the foundation of the team's turnaround effort. "It's about being a professional. You show up every night, and you do your job," Plum said. "That's what we need to do moving forward every night. I get it, you make mistakes and everything, but it's really more about pride." When asked whether the team's defensive struggles were a matter of effort or mentality, Plum remained direct but careful not to single out teammates. "I'm not going to speak for anyone else," she said. "But when you have the worst defensive rating of all time in the you tell me." The message was unmistakable. Responsibility starts internally. Accountability and leadership pressure. Plum's comments reflected a larger theme that has followed the Sparks throughout the season: leadership expectations. With a roster that includes established veterans and high-profile additions, Los Angeles was expected to be more competitive on both ends of the floor. Instead, inconsistency defined their early stretch, particularly on defense. Plum acknowledged that internal conversations over the past week had centered on pride, effort, and execution. Her emphasis wasn't on schemes or statistics, it was on mentality. And for one night, that mentality translated into results. Nneka Ogwumike stabilizing presence. While Plum provided the emotional spark, veteran forward Nneka Ogwumike delivered one of the most dominant performances of the season and anchored the Sparks on both ends. Ogwumike finished with 20 points, 17 rebounds, strong interior defense and leadership communication. Her presence in the paint gave Los Angeles a level of stability it had been missing for much of the year. One thing that we've really been adamant about is getting the schemes that the coaches put us in and adhering to those schemes, she explained. We bought into that, and that allowed us to make adjustments without feeling like we need to change everything. Her message highlighted a crucial point: the Sparks' issues were not just talent-based, but execution-based. When the system is followed, the results improve. Ariel Atkins and defensive identity shift. The Sparks' off-season additions also played a key role in reshaping expectations. With players like Ariel Atkins and Ogwumike, both known for elite defensive credentials and multiple all-defensive team selections, the roster was built with the intention of improving that side of the ball. However, integrating new personnel takes time, especially when rotations, spacing, and communication systems are still being established. The win against Portland suggested that the pieces are finally starting to align. Defensive switches were cleaner. Help rotations were faster. And overall intensity levels were noticeably higher. A turning point or just one game? Despite the convincing win, questions remain about whether this performance represents a true turning point or simply an isolated breakout. The Sparks have struggled with consistency all season, and one strong defensive outing does not erase weeks of poor execution. Still, context matters. This was not just a win, it was a response. A response to criticism. A response to statistical embarrassment. And a response led by one of the team's most important voices. Looking ahead, opportunity or pressure? The schedule ahead presents an opportunity for momentum. Matchups against Seattle and the Phoenix Mercury will test whether the Sparks can maintain defensive discipline against more consistent offensive teams. For Plum and the Sparks, the challenge is no longer about proving they can defend for one game. It is about proving they can sustain it. If they can replicate the intensity, communication, and effort displayed against Portland, the narrative around their season could begin to shift. If not, the criticism will return just as quickly as it faded. Final outlook. One win does not solve a season. But for the Los Angeles Sparks, it may have shown what is possible when accountability meets execution. Kelsey Plum set the tone. Nneka Ogwumike anchored the performance. And the entire roster responded with its most complete defensive effort of the year. Was this the start of a turnaround, or just a reminder of what this team should have been all along?